According to research, kissing is good for you. Scientists say it stabilises cardiovascular activity and decreases high blood pressure and cholesterol. A good passionate kiss increases your metabolic rate and gives approximately 30 face muscles a workout, which in theory helps you to stay wrinkle-free. On the diet front, we lose 12 calories during every passionate kiss, so kissing keeps you in good shape. One final encouragement about kissing that I like is apparently our brains have special neurons that help us to find each other's lips in the dark. So the question we're going to be addressing in this session is, how do we keep our love alive over the whole course of a marriage? We sometimes hear people say, that's not realistic. Others say, it's just a matter of luck, or only happens if we marry Mr. or Miss Right, as if there was only one person in the world we could possibly marry. Actually, as Andy Stanley says, it's not so much about finding the one as about becoming the one.
Keeping our love alive is a deliberate choice we make. It involves being intentional by developing patterns of behaviour that will create and maintain a strong emotional connection between us. This means investing in our friendship and having fun together, maintaining romance, and creating habits that draw us together. An example might be making a daily habit of connecting at the start of the day by having breakfast together, or connecting during the day by messaging each other or speaking on the phone. Another habit might be reconnecting when we get home by exercising together, walking the dog, or downloading our day over a cup of tea or coffee.
If we don't create positive patterns of behaviour like these, we can all too easily fall into negative ones, such as in the evening when you get home, one person watching TV while the other's on social media, not really communicating, and then going to bed at different times.
One very important habit that has done as much as anything to keep Zilla and me closely connected over all the years of our marriage has been setting aside time to spend together once a week having a date night. We've discovered these weekly dates have two benefits. First, they give us a regular opportunity for effective communication at a meaningful level so that we keep deepening our understanding of one another. Secondly, they keep the romance, the love, the fun and the friendship alive in our marriage.
When we first got married, we thought that this kind of time together would just happen automatically. But we were busy with work, socialising a lot with friends and family, increasingly involved with our church community, and we had no quality time for ourselves.
Then we got some great advice from an older couple who suggested we had to be really intentional about making this quality time together.
So since then, every week, we have tried to plan at least 2 hours together, having a meal and doing something fun that we both enjoy. And that's become our weekly date. We now plan it into our calendars for 3 months ahead.
Now, by date, we don't mean we spend a lot of money. In fact, we realise that if we're to have regular date nights, it's important not to set the bar too high. And some of our best ones have cost us very little. Having a picnic by the river on a summer's evening, finding some cheap theatre tickets, or a 2-for-1 deal in a restaurant.
Nikki is particularly good at that.
Or simply going for a walk. We vary what we do and when we have our date. If it's in the evening, we might stay at home. But if we do, we'll make sure it's different to a normal evening. Zilla cooks something special. We'll put candles on the table, put on some nice music. Or we may watch a film together that we'd both enjoy and generally make it feel romantic.
So it's important for us both to be involved in organising what we do. And occasionally one of us will plan a surprise. But it's worth checking your partner likes surprises before you do that. Having a weekly date together might seem a funny thing to do once you're married. You're living in the same house and you're around each other much of the time. But that's exactly why we need to do this. Otherwise, it is so easy to start to take each other and our marriage for granted.
Quality time is really important to me. And I think you kind of knew that, but you'd sometimes think we'd had quality time when it had literally been half an hour lunch break.
Yeah,
or
we had a different definition of it, didn't we?
For me, quality time is just us two, no distractions, no work, no admin, but just discovering what we like, and we love going for walks, doing new things, eating food together is a big one.
I think a game changer for us was getting a joint calendar where we can actually put something into the calendar. We can both see it. We kind of know what's to be expected. I can plan something in advance, which we discovered was a massive kind of aspect of your definition of quality time, that I would take the effort not just to be there, but to have thought about it beforehand.
Yeah, you'd love just to randomly do something, whereas to me that would just communicate he's not thought about this or put any time or effort into this, therefore he's not valued this time together. So yeah, I think we've learned, haven't we?
We're getting there.
Yeah.
For Grace, it's all about quality time.
Yeah.
Really. Sometimes if I fail to make the time, she would prompt me and I have to be conscious, there's a prompt. She needs it. You know, and I say, okay, I'll try and drop everything and then let's go out for a date night. Or let's just spend time together. Let's make sure the kids are in bed and this same couch, I'll be sitting on one end, she'll be sitting on the other end, and we'll just yak.
Yeah.
You know, we just talk.
It sounds counterintuitive to an easygoing personality, but you need to be disciplined about having fun. It's a little weird to think about, but it works, right? I mean, if you carve out time where you can be easygoing and you can relieve the pressures of a normal work week and just really enjoy each other's company.
And we try to not talk about kids or work. And I had to, especially after I stopped working, I had to really kind of prepare for our dates. I know that sounds kind of silly, but I would quick do a perusal of news just to see if there were any interesting stories or anything that I could bring to the relationship. Otherwise, you do have the tendency to sit there and say, well, my day was just like every other day I ever have. So I do try to make a little bit of an effort when we go out, and I think that also helps.
Nikki and I always have our weekly date around a meal, as meal times provide the best opportunities for building friendship and having meaningful conversations. And our dates have often been the catalyst for us to talk at a deeper level than we have time for in the rest of the week.
However, we've discovered that making conversation during meals and drawing each other out requires a conscious decision. A good conversationalist isn't someone who has the most interesting things to say, but rather the one who's best at asking questions.
Yes, I love it when Nikki asks me a question like, what would be your best holiday? I can talk for a long time about that one. Or what's been most difficult for you this week? Or what are you looking forward to? The biggest threat to meaningful conversation between couples today is screens. Most of us have been out for a meal and seen couples sitting in total silence, and they look like they've forgotten how to even hold a conversation with each other, and they've stopped asking each other questions altogether. Often they're more focused on their phones than on each other. Phones and other screens not only replace conversation, but if we invite our 1,436 online followers to come on a date with us, the message we're sending our partner is, other people and other things are more important to me than you. Whereas when we put our screens away and focus our attention on our partner, we're communicating powerfully, I value you above everyone else.
So our suggestion is to put your phones on silent and not to check them or make or take calls during your date night, or actually whenever you're having a meal together. That's a good habit to get into before having children, because it means they'll grow up seeing that meal times are important for talking with others.
My name is Emerson,
My name is Christina.
and right now we live in Mexico City.
We met at a nightclub.
First and last time I danced, but I danced with you that night.
Yes. Boundaries with phones.
It's a struggle.
It's real.
You know, it's an area that I'm not proud of. Especially that I've noticed, like, I don't even think about it, and I'm just going to my phone.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, you're not alone in that. We all do, but now we have to work on not being on it.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's where, you know, the struggle is.
We were just in South America as a family visiting my father in Bolivia.
In Bolivia.
And Bolivia is the only country where our cell provider does not work. So when we landed, and it wouldn't get.
It literally said no service.
I'm like, usually that changes, but nothing was coming through. So my phone was dead for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But it was so healthy.
Yeah.
Because I got to talk, I got to engage.
Connect. Yeah, so that was a good break for
Funny
me.
stuff.
I loved it. I loved it and I didn't love it.
It was
Being
super hard.
disconnected.
Super hard for me.
It's really important we connect through conversation, but our date night isn't just about talking. It's also about having fun together on a regular basis. Couples who naturally have different interests may have to work a bit harder to find an activity that they enjoy doing together.
But our encouragement is don't give up. Even if your last date night didn't go very well and you ended up having a huge row, persevering and being creative will mean that the net benefits over time will far outweigh the effort involved. So, for the first conversation in your journal, Building Your Friendship, we want you to think about what you both enjoy doing together. Each of you separately write down 6 things. When you've finished, compare your lists. Then talk about how you could continue to have fun together, doing things like these for many years to come.
Another way to build deeper connection and to keep your love growing in marriage is to discover what especially makes your partner feel loved. Like most couples, Nikki and I are quite different in what makes us feel loved. For me, it's when we have time together on our own, and particularly times that Nikki has planned and initiated, when I've had his undivided attention. Recently for our date night, I told Nikki I felt like getting right away from our local neighbourhood, as I didn't want to bump into anybody we knew. So he did some research online and found a tapas bar that was right across the other side of the city. Now, he didn't tell me where we were going, but we drove for about 40 minutes across London to a part of the city we really don't know. I just absolutely loved the whole thing. The time in the car, the time wandering around this totally new area, and the time eating tapas together all made me feel really special.
I really enjoyed it too, and especially because Scylla kept telling me what a great choice I'd made. Whereas for Scylla, it's the time we spend together that makes her feel loved. For me, I feel loved through Scylla's words, when Scylla says nice things to me and not too many critical things all in one go, or when she encourages me on something I've done well or compliments me on my carpentry. I love it. If I've made something for Scylla, I like her to say something complimentary about it every day for at least 2 weeks. After that, every other day is fine.
Marriage counsellor and author Gary Chapman, in his brilliant book, The 5 Love Languages, identifies 5 different ways through which people feel loved.
The love languages, and there are no particular order, but one of them is words of affirmation. Simply using words to affirm the other person. You look nice in that outfit. Really appreciate what you did. You know, one of the things I like about you, it's simply using words to affirm the other person. And for some people, words of affirmation is their primary love language. And so when you give them words of affirmation, they feel loved. A second is giving gifts or presents to the other person. The gift says, hey, they were thinking about me. Look what they got for me. Now, the presents don't have to be expensive. Haven't we always said it's the thought that counts? Another love language is acts of service, or doing things for the other person, kind actions for the other person. Cooking a meal, for example, is a huge act of service. Washing dishes, vacuuming floors, washing the car, mowing the grass, or shoveling the snow, or anything that you know the other person would like for you to do. It's not true for everyone, but if this is your love language, actions will speak louder than words. And so for some people, this is their primary love language. Then there's quality time. Giving the person your undivided attention. You're looking at each other, you're listening, you're interfacing with each other. Now, it's not always simply a conversation. Quality time can be going out in the yard and planting a garden together, or taking a walk together down the road and talk as you walk, or going out to eat. Number 5 is physical touch. We've long known the emotional power of physical affirming touches. All humans touch, and there are appropriate and inappropriate touches. We're talking about appropriate touches, affirming touches. In a marriage relationship, this is such things as hugging, kissing, pat on the back, arm around the shoulder. And the basic concept, of course, is that out of the 5 love languages, each of us has what I call a primary love language. It's very similar to spoken language. Every one of us grew up speaking a language with a dialect, and that's the one we understand best. We call it our native tongue. Same thing's true of love. Now, once in a while, someone says to me, I don't know, Gary, I think 2 of those are just about equal for me. And my response is, fine, we'll give you 2 love languages. We'll call you bilingual. But most of us have a primary love language, a secondary love language, then the other 3 fall in line under that.
It's been such a helpful discovery for Nikki and me to find out the order of importance of these expressions of love for each other. For Nikki, loving words are closely followed by actions, and I know he feels loved through the things that I do for him as well as the things I say to him. For me, quality time is closely followed by physical affection, by touch. So as you can see, we're very different from each other.
You need to work out your primary love languages in order to be able to tell your partner. You can't expect them to know automatically. Some people assume that their partner feels loved in the same way that they do, so they try to communicate love in the way that they understand it and want to receive it. But that doesn't work if their partner feels loved in a different way. We may have to learn our partner's love language, and it can be just like learning a foreign language, which takes effort, discipline, and practice if we're to become fluent. And we may need to get over feeling self-conscious or inadequate or awkward if our partner's love language isn't something we've seen or experienced as we grew up.
I grew up with seeing my mom and acts of service being a huge love language for her. So I would do acts of service all the time, do stuff around the house for Heather, and she would be like, oh yeah, that's cool, great, thanks. And I was just in this huge conundrum of, but this is supposed to work.
My wife's love language was affection.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the physical touch and hugs. I wanted to express my love through acts of service. You know, pick something up or take you somewhere. But in those moments, I didn't think of how important it is to put my arm around her or to hold her hand. All those kind of things, I had to really grow muscles in those areas that didn't come so easily for me.
All the words of affirmation are his big love language. And he thought that they were mine, but they were not mine. My love language is service. Service.
With a smile.
With a smile. So service was, when somebody just does something for you without you having to even ask. It's like, oh. So like, for example, when he gets off from work, he will always call me and he'll always ask me, do you need me to pick anything up from the store? And he doesn't realize what that does for me.
I like to be touched, and Michael hates it. We had a first dance during our wedding, and I put my hand just behind Michael's head, and Michael tried to keep the smile going, so he was like, just take your hand off my head.
有时候送给他围巾呀，比如说去杭州出差会买一个丝绸的那个围巾呀，送给他。然后过了一段时间，我发现，哎呦，有一个朋友的丝巾和我送给我爱人的丝巾特别像，一模一样的。然后我就告诉他，哦，你知道吗？我曾经给我爱人也买过一样的丝巾。他就说，是吗？你爱人送我了。讲啊，为什么把我的礼物送给别人呢？当我知道他的爱的语言是服务，还有包括肯定以后啊，省了很多钱。
The aim of the next conversation, Discovering Your Love Languages, is to help you discover the order of importance of them for each of you. We suggest that first you write down 6 specific occasions on which you've particularly known your partner's love for you. It could be major events or something small but which was very significant for you. So, for example, I felt loved when you gave me that book I'd been talking about. Now that might indicate thoughtful presents are important to you. Or, I felt loved when you cooked my favourite meal for me. That may show kind actions mean a lot to you.
And on the basis of what you've written down, try to work out the order of importance of the love languages for yourself. Then, without looking at what your partner has put, try to guess the order for them. When you've both finished, show each other what you've written down.
Could that even be a question?
Is it important to breathe?
It is very profound actually, and it really helps the marriage to go on.
Man, it gets better with age.
I think it's a big part of a relationship, so it's needed.
Well, I think sex is important in marriage.
It does really important to have a good, sexual relationship between the husband and wife, especially if you want a lot of kids.
I think without that, it's a friendship or it's something else.
Without sex, you're friends.
It's not always important. I'm still young, so is she. Like sometimes there's days like it won't come across a man.
I think it adds a bit of spice. There's the cooking, there's the cleaning, there's the washing, and there's the sex of it. So it's part of the package. Look at it as one healthy ingredient in that whole recipe to make that meal.
The sexual relationship is a very powerful way of bonding with each other, of keeping the spark alive in our relationship and keeping us connected over the whole course of a marriage. Sex joins us together, not just physically, but emotionally, psychologically, and even spiritually. That is deep connection.
Sex isn't just the icing on the cake of a marriage. It's a vital ingredient of the cake itself. Our sexual intimacy affects every other part of our marriage relationship, and every part of our marriage affects our sexual intimacy. We want to clear up any misunderstanding and make it quite clear that God is for sex. The Bible portrays sex as a gift of God, a wonderful expression of our mutual love and joining, as well as for the creation of a family. The Song of Songs, the love song right in the middle of the Bible, unashamedly celebrates the couple's sexual relationship. It shows we're to feel no guilt or shame about sex within a loving, committed relationship. Rather, we're to revel in it, to experience its power, to join us together, to feel connected, and to enjoy it.
But sex is not given for our selfish enjoyment. Our culture, with its high level of consumerism and individualism, tends to ask, how can I satisfy my desires in the ways that I choose? Good sex, rather than being me-oriented, will always be us-oriented.
So, we want to look at 3 key aspects of establishing and maintaining a pattern of good sex in marriage. The first is to get our hearts in sync.
We want to encourage you to think of your sexual relationship as a journey of discovery over a lifetime.
And sex really can get better and better if we look after it as an integral part of our marriage.
Recently, a number of national newspapers in the UK reported on some research that showed the best age for a whole variety of activities. Apparently, the best age to remember things is 25. The best age to learn a language is 8. The best age to do maths in your head is 50. And the best age to have great sex is 66. So the best is yet to come.
We can easily be misled by films and the media into thinking that sex should be instantaneously brilliant. But that's not real life. It's not realistic to expect to become black belts at sex overnight, or to be able to turn on fantastic sex at the flick of a switch. Sometimes we have to unlearn some of the messages that we've absorbed from contemporary culture.
Intimacy is not something that Hollywood paints.
Yeah.
I mean, really, it's nothing like that. You know, it doesn't just happen. You burst through the door and everything comes off and off you go.
No,
it does not happen that way.
Yeah.
There's real human emotions and
there's the right time. There's like the romance to it.
And then there's like, did she have a bad day with the kids and you come in all fired up? You're like, it's gonna happen, and no, it's not actually because you didn't know what happened in the house today.
So we've learned to be a lot more open with each other and be okay with it because it's in a safe space, like it's in a safe environment, like, and learning that it's safe to talk about sex.
It started quite awkward, like during being in bed together, we would comment on something that we liked or we didn't like, and at the moment we felt really like, oh, he didn't
Maybe
like
there's
it.
something wrong.
I think these awkward moments that we felt that are not proper paid off now after a few years, that if I didn't say out loud that I didn't like to be touched in that or that way,
You know, he would never learn that I didn't like to be touched that way.
The fact that we talked about it and then were able to have a sense of humor about it was really key.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not laughing at each other, but with.
To be in sync, we need to keep talking about sex a lot. We recognise that can be difficult at first. Our sexuality is rightly a deeply private part of our lives, and talking about sex requires us to make ourselves vulnerable. Our encouragement is don't leave it to guesswork. The more we tell one another what we enjoy or don't enjoy, what we struggle with, what turns us on and what turns us off, the more natural it'll become. Being vulnerable like this builds emotional intimacy, which is the key to great sex.
Getting our hearts in sync may also involve talking through any past sexual relationships, as these can lead to jealousy and mistrust. We need to bring closure for the sake of our relationship. Our advice is to face these things together and talk about them, and especially if you're engaged. You don't need to go into all the details, but it really is best to go into marriage with no skeletons in the cupboard. This may involve deleting old emails or texts, or disconnecting on social media from people we were previously attracted to, or deleting photos of previous partners, as these can all bring back unhelpful emotions from the past for us or for our partner. You might well need to say sorry and then forgive each other, which can be hard, but as we said previously, forgiveness is a choice we make, even when we may not feel like it.
I'm Dimas Salaberios.
I'm Tiffany Salaberios.
We met at a church in Queens, New York.
New York City.
I was coming out of the church, she was coming in, and I grabbed the door, grabbed her hand, started to shake it, and I just had a loss for words. Years before I met Tiffany, I was involved in the drug world, and so I had a pretty wild story. So I was pretty ruthless on not going into places that could bring harm to us, not visiting old friends, all old girlfriends, things like that, completely cut off. No reason to be Facebook friends, no reason to check in with each other. Like we had those kind of conversations very early on, that, you know, we weren't gonna be
inevitably
in contact
somebody
with
looks
anybody.
us up, right?
Yeah, once in a while,
Old boyfriends or
somebody
old
would try
girlfriends
to-
might look us up, and then we'll be like, oh, wow, okay, blah, 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 blah. Thank you, have a nice life, bye. And I would say that even now, as we meet members of the opposite sex, and we feel like, oh, this is a great friend or whatever, we kind of like make sure they're, like, it's like our friend, not, like we're not building up these side friend relationships with people, so.
Yeah, so we have a lot of boundaries and things in place to keep us from making really dumb decisions. Yeah.
The second way to maintain a pattern of good sex is to get our heads straight. You may have heard it said, the brain is the biggest sexual organ in the body. It's true. Good sex has so much to do with our state of mind. Filling our minds with what is beautiful, honourable, and mutually respectful about sex will positively enhance our sexual relationship. Conversely, if there are mental obstacles to intimacy, it'll be nearly impossible to enjoy good sex.
Anxiety starts in the head, but it has a physical outworking in the body. What happens is we have a disconnect between our head and our body. To stay sexually aroused, we need a constant cycle, a constant circuit, if you like, between our head and our body. We need to be fully connected. If we're anxious, if we're worrying about sexual difficulties, we split the two off. In men, we see that with erectile dysfunction, an inability to get or keep an erection because they're feeling really anxious about it. We see in women people that are anxious about sex, for example, hurting, and they think I mustn't be anxious about it, but they're already tense, and that then compounds the problem. So it can be a sort of self-fulfilling prophecy, really. So rather than being connected, their head and their body connected to stay aroused, They're constantly worrying about what to do, how to touch their partner, which means they don't fully engage in what they're doing. Perhaps their partner is the same, and it means that sex is not enjoyable. So the anxiety around it keeps them from discussing it, but also really fully engaging in what they're doing with one another. It may be that we've also experienced sexual trauma or sexual abuse in our past, and that will significantly impact how we feel about sex in a relationship. So it's really important that we talk about these things with our partner, and it may be that you need additional support before you're able to move to a place where you're able to think about sex being positive, and that's where going to see a sex therapist can be really helpful.
Anxiety about sex can seem like a huge obstacle in a marriage, but as a couple, you can overcome it.
If you're struggling, our advice is don't bury the problem. Talk together, read a book about sex together, or seek expert help if needed.
Another area that can negatively impact a couple's sex life, and one of the most common problems affecting couples today, is the accessibility of pornography.
In our work with couples on the marriage course, we've come across increasing numbers of couples who are struggling with the impact of pornography on their relationship.
There's a couple of problems with, pornography use to a marriage and to a relationship, but also to an individual. What happens when somebody has a pornographic experience, right? So it's a good experience. It feels good, and that in itself is reinforcing. It goes to pleasure centers in the brain. Certain chemicals are released that make someone feel good. Then it starts to become kind of a track that you run down. It becomes its own, neural pathways, if you will, that drives behavior. Now, that becomes really problematic for a number of reasons. One is you need more, there's diminishing returns. But the other thing is, remember, when you're talking about pornography use, what you're talking about is you're using a fantasy object as a sex object or a love object. You've separated your orientation and your wiring towards love, towards satisfaction, towards fulfillment. You've separated it, you've compartmentalized it from a real human being. You're never getting to the place where the two of you can have everything that marriage was designed to provide. Probably if it's become a habit pattern, you're subject and at risk for that to continue. So it's really, really important that you kind of deal with this and you begin to get it out of your life, because what you got to do is you're going to commit to a person, and that person is a real person that you got to have full-fledged intimacy with. So deal with those issues in your life and talk about them in your, if you're engaged with your future spouse. And let me tell you, the sexiest thing probably that your spouse can know about you is that you possess the character internally. There you have self-control, and all of your self-control takes a steering wheel and aims it towards your spouse. That's a sexy person.
We want to encourage you to have an honest conversation with your partner in as non-judgmental a way as possible. This stuff is so easy to get into and can be very hard to get out of.
Being honest and taking steps to change your habits will have a hugely positive impact on your relationship and will make having good sex a reality in marriage.
One final area where our brain will affect our sexual responses is if we have low self-esteem and a poor body image.
And these negative thoughts can stop us wanting to be naked in front of our partner, or they leave us playing a very passive sexual role. And all of us today, both men and women, are bombarded with the body perfect image, whether that's online, on posters, or in magazines.
The antidote is to keep telling each other on a regular basis, "You're so beautiful, you look great," or whatever words you'd most naturally use, whether your partner is dressed or undressed. That will build your partner's self-esteem. And this is what we see in the Song of Songs, the two lovers admiring every aspect of each other's bodies and telling each other again and again. And this becomes an integral part of their lovemaking.
The next conversation in your journal is talking about sex. Write something to complete the first two sentences about getting your hearts in sync and getting your head straight, and then discuss what you've put with your partner. Now, we recognise this can be a hard area to talk about, but if you make a start, it'll get easier.
The third aspect we want to address for good sex is to get our bodies set. Sex is about the giving of our bodies to each other, and that requires trust between us as a couple.
As we said on the last session, the marriage vows, with their promises of love and faithfulness into the future, create that trust and a sense of safety, which are an essential for good sex.
Some couples have rushed into a sexual relationship and as a result haven't allowed other aspects of their relationship to develop. And that was certainly our experience. Scylla and I met when we were teenagers. I was 18 and she was just 17, and we fell madly in love. Pretty soon, we started sleeping together. About a year and a half after we met, we both discovered a personal Christian faith which profoundly impacted our lives, and especially the way we felt about our relationship. We decided from that point on we would try our best to keep sex for marriage. One of our fears was that if we stopped sleeping together, our relationship would drift apart.
Now, it certainly wasn't easy putting in some boundaries for ourselves, but over the next 2.5 years till we got married, we discovered our fears were unfounded. Far from drifting apart, we experienced a new freedom as other parts of our relationship had a chance to develop that had previously been overshadowed by the focus on our sexual relationship. We got to know each other in a much more rounded way. We found out more about each other's character, each other's opinions and interests. We started to learn to distinguish between lust and love. And we also started to learn how to be more caring and thoughtful towards each other, which was all really important things to learn for when we got married, and continue to be important in our marriage now.
We know many couples who've decided to keep sex for marriage, or, like us, to have a period of abstinence from sex prior to getting married. They've talked to us of how it helped to mark their wedding day as a new start together, as a memorable new beginning, a watershed moment in their lives. And that was exactly our experience too. Delaying sex until our wedding underlined that moment of commitment, giving ourselves to each other in our vows and then in our sexual relationship.
Rachel and Anne. I think with the idea of marriage as well, and thinking actually we're going to be together for life here, although we went into marriage and I suppose it was a little bit awkward at times, kind of the whole sex thing. At the same point, we were like, actually, no, we've got a lifetime to figure this out. Yeah. Like, we don't have to have this all sorted on the first weekend or even during our honeymoon. And actually, that was quite a helpful perspective to have, to go, actually, no, we can relax with this. We don't have to ask, are we sexually compatible? It's like, no, we're going to figure this out.
Yeah. And I think for me, I actually found it really reassuring that Andy had waited until we were married before having sex, because it just felt like a safe space. It was like, he's not in this just for that one reason. But actually there was something quite special for us both. This was a new part of life, a new part of our relationship that we were able to explore together. And it was something just between us two. It was worth being in that context of trust, of having waited for each other,
Not that waiting was always easy. I think especially when we got engaged and we had, actually no, this is the date in mind that we're going to be married. Like, we've kind of made this commitment to each other. What's the point in waiting now? Because we pretty much will be married. But I'm really glad we did. I'm really glad that actually something changed kind of on that day when it was like, actually no, this is a new season, not just in regards to sex, but in regards to kind of all the other dimensions. But actually sex was a big shift in that kind of respect.
Keeping sex for marriage certainly requires self-control, but it is possible. And actually, learning self-control is important for every one of us. Self-control is required in large measure in every marriage, especially at times when we find ourselves attracted to somebody else. So we'd encourage you to be honest with each other. Ask your partner what they'd most like. They may want to keep sex for marriage, but are afraid of hurting you by saying so. Then you can work out how to go forwards together.
Before giving you a final time to talk again, we want to leave you with 4 very practical tips. First, plan for sex on a regular basis. The biggest problem for many couples is tiredness, and our sex life can so easily become the first casualty. Just like any activity we want to be good at, sex requires us to be intentional. Having sex regularly is a decision we make. Each couple needs to work out their own pattern, but it needs to be enough to keep you closely connected at a physical sexual level.
Secondly, make your bedroom special. Make it a space in which you feel totally relaxed and safe. Get the right lighting, get the temperature right, have music on if you like that, and leave phones and screens out of the bedroom. Many couples we know have a no phones in their bedroom rule. Your partner being more interested in a screen than you is a total romance killer. You can buy an alarm clock very cheaply, which may just be the best investment you make for your sex life. And get the biggest bed you can fit in your bedroom. You won't regret it.
Thirdly, be creative. Talk together about what you like or might like. Try to avoid getting stuck in a sexual rut, not always same way, same place, same routine. It can help to read a book about sex. Be imaginative, but always be gentle, honouring and respectful of each other.
Fourthly, plan a night or two away from home occasionally. Nikki and I know from experience that going away to a different place for even one night can be a great catalyst to reconnection if things have become a bit mundane and routine. Sex isn't just the icing on the cake, but a vital part of building a strong marriage over a lifetime. And our advice to you would be, invest in it.
So now, for the final conversation, look in your journal at Talking About Sex Part 2. Write something in answer to the question, and then start to talk where you feel able to about what you've each written down.
This session has been all about how love is much more than a feeling. It involves taking action, planning quality time together, using our partner's love languages, and developing a good sexual relationship. These are all ways that we can each choose to keep our love alive and growing.
The reading we've chosen for this session is one we've heard at many weddings. It's from Colossians chapter 3, and in it, St. Paul describes what it means to put on love as deliberately as we might put on a shirt or a coat. As God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Bear with each other and forgive one another if any of you has a grievance against someone. Forgive as the Lord forgave you. And over all these virtues, put on love, which binds them all together in perfect unity.
I'm going to finish by saying a short prayer. Thank you, Lord, that you show us the ways of putting on love. Please guide each of us to learn how to express love to our partner so that they feel loved. Thank you for the wonderful gift of sexual intimacy. We ask you to help us to use that gift to express and receive love in ways that will build our marriage over a lifetime. And we ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you on the next session.
Dan and Katie, so 16, take one. Mark.
Don't encourage her.
I'll sit them off camera.
Here we go.
I've got dead leg.
For you, because I don't game on the phone.
No, I play Candy Crush, and it's easy enough to just shut it off.
You wouldn't always tell me how you felt.
I've just burped, just a really big burp. I'm so sorry. That's
Is that cream egg?
That's a cream egg burp.
I wouldn't call myself a gamer. Definitely not hardcore.
It's certainly not something that I feel comfortable talking about at all.
But you're doing it right now on camera.
That's all I'm doing. I'm not doing anything else.